What are the most common mistakes in Incoterms and how to avoid them? Incoterms provide a set of international protocols used to identify the responsible party in international trade. They were created to make global trade more straightforward and give a standardized term across the board. And while most in the trade industry know Incoterms, they are continually misused, leading to increased costs and risks. Let's take a look at the most common mistakes when it comes to Incoterms and how you can avoid them. 1. Using the wrong modes of transport. FAS, FOB, CFR, and CIF are used only for sea and inland waterway transport. At the same time, these 4 Incoterms are not appropriate for containerized sea freight. All containerized freights are usually handed over to the carrier in a terminal and not loaded on or placed alongside the vessel immediately. Due to the time gap, the shipper will have to bear the risk until the goods are loaded on board the ship, or placed alongside it for FAS terms. Any damage to the goods before this will be the sole responsibility of the shipper. Tip: for containerized freight, use FCA, CPT, and CIP instead. When CPT and CIP are used for containerized cargo, the risk of loss will no longer be with the seller once the goods are handed over to the carrier. And when using the FCA terms, the risk is transferred once the agreed upon named place is reached. 2. Not being specific in named place and destination. If the place of delivery is not specific, it can lead to disputes over responsibilities. For example, if the Incoterms indicate FCA Houston, without any particular address, and when there's damage to the goods before the container is on board the vessel, the responsibilities became ambiguous. Note: in all Incoterms rules, except the C rules, the named place indicates where the goods are delivered, that is, where the risk is transferred from the seller to the buyer. In the D rule, the named place is the place of delivery and also the place of destination, and the seller must organize the carriage to that point. In the C rules, the named place indicates the destination to which the seller must organize and pay for the carriage of the goods, which is not, however, the place or port of delivery. Tip: to ensure no ambiguity, use the complete specific address, such as FCA Houston, 502 Crawford Street. 3. Confusion over ownership and risk. Incoterms do not define where title transfer will take place, it only describes the obligations between the seller and the buyer, the place where the goods are delivered, and which party is responsible for which costs. Thus they only cover the risk during the period of delivery and dividing the costs accordingly. Tip: title transfer should be identified clearly and indicated explicitly in a sales contract. 4. Using EXW or DDP without understanding customs responsibilities and capabilities. While Incoterms define who has responsibilities for export and import formalities, it is essential to remember that a buyer-seller must be set up and legally act as the exporter-importer to handle these formalities properly. In EXW shipments, the buyer must complete all export procedures in the seller's country. Similarly, the seller must complete import formalities and pay VAT in the buyer's country when it comes to DDP shipments. Without the proper setup, the buyer using the EXW terms or the seller doing the DDP terms could lead to added costs or delays in clearing the goods. Tip: before using EXW or DDP, ensure that the buyer and seller are set up properly and able to complete the export and import formalities. If not, these terms should not be used. 5. Insurance issues and different levels of insurance cover in CIF and CIP. When using CIF or CIP, the seller must ensure that the insurance amount is adequately covered on the goods. The seller should provide a minimum level of 110% contract value, and when a commercial contract calls for a higher level of insurance amount, it must be met. Note: in CIF rules for Incoterms 2020, the seller must obtain at its expense cargo insurance, complying with the minimum cover provided by Institute Cargo Clauses C, and in CIP rules for Incoterms 2020, the seller must now obtain insurance cover complying with Institute Cargo Clauses A. Tip: When using CIP or CIF terms, check whether the insurance coverage is sufficient, and matches the requirements of the commercial contract. 6. Not determining who should pay the THC, Terminal Handling Charges. THC or the terminal handling charges vary by carrier and trade lane, and sometimes these charges are included in the freight rates. There is usually confusion about who is responsible for the THC, especially when C or D terms are used. These will lead to delays in the payment of the fees and often result in demurrage charges. Tip: outline the responsibilities in the commercial contract. The seller and buyer should know your carrier and lanes and your trading partners, and should be on the same page as far as who will be responsible for any terminal handling charges. Last but not least, it is advisable to indicate the year in your sales contract, as leaving the year out could cause problems and may be difficult to resolve. The contract parties, judge, or arbitrator, need to be able to determine which version of the Incoterms rules applies to the contract. For example, CIF Shanghai Incoterms 2020, or DAP number 456, ABC Street, Import Place Incoterms 2020. Remember to always incorporate the Incoterms in the correct format into the contract and all relevant shipping documents such as the LC, letter of credit, commercial invoice, and bill of lading. Incoterms should make things easier for trading partners. However, if all parties don't fully understand them, it only adds more confusion to an already hectic process. Thank you for watching, and I hope the information provided in this video gives you a better understanding of the common Incoterms mistakes and how to avoid them, with the tips provided. Do drop me your comments and let me know your thoughts on the following. Is it important that the named place be specific in the terms used? When using the CIP terms, can the seller still cover the insurance complying with Institute Cargo Clauses C? To be the first to watch the next video, please subscribe to my channel and click on the notification bell. Goodbye. From your trusted shipping guide. Revisit.